All right. Well, thank you guys for joining tonight. I'm excited to talk about this. We're talking about how to attract and convert more capital for syndication deals. And about why this matters, I mean, you probably know, but why do you want to attract and convert more capital? Well, whether you're just starting out or if you've done a few deals or many deals, there's always the need to raise more capital. So this training is going to be powerful, really, no matter where you're at, what level you're at. And because you only know so many people personally, sooner or later, your personal network is going to be tapped out. Even if you could raise enough capital to syndicate a deal, it's probably not going to be enough to support multiple deals at the same time in most cases. And while meeting people one-on-one is great, really by relying on that only, it does limit your potential because you can only talk to so many people, right? So today we're going to be talking about how you can tap into virtually unlimited sources of potential investors. Now, if you were trying to fill a bucket with water and at first the only source you had was a slow drip, it's going to take a long time to fill. And that's kind of like having only your personal network as a source of investors. But imagine you found a faucet you could turn on. Once you find that and turn it on, you can obviously fill your bucket a lot faster. But what if you have a hole in the bucket and water is going out as fast as it's coming in? Well, that's a problem that a lot of syndicators have in their business. So whether you have a few investors or a lot, very likely there are probably some holes in your system that can cause you to lose some good leads, people who could have invested. So today we'll be talking about building a system that attracts new prospective investors and then converts them into being actual investors and even repeat investors. In case you're not familiar with me, I'll just briefly share a little bit about who I am. I don't like talking about myself, so I'll keep this brief. But I've been helping real estate investors tap into the power of the internet for about 18 years. I started off helping single family investors. And then in 2014, we branched into helping syndicators. So for about 8 years, we've helped syndicators with their capital raising websites and automating their whole process of raising capital. So our company, it's called Apartment Investor Pro, and it's the only company I know of in all the world that specializes in creating strategic websites for syndicators, designed to maximize your positioning so you stand out in a more positive way, so people are more eager to explore investing with you. And just briefly, I'll share a couple things from my background and some lessons that I've learned. 20 years ago, I married my wife, and when I married her, I had never really been anywhere. I grew up on a cattle ranch in Oklahoma and hadn't been farther than a state or two away. I grew up in one house, and when I was old enough to move out, I moved across the street. But my wife was from Pennsylvania. She liked to travel, and when I asked her to marry me, she said yes, on the condition that we'd live somewhere else. So I agreed, and a year later, I reluctantly moved 1,000 miles away to Virginia. Later, she wanted to go on a cruise, but to me, the idea of travel outside the country meant certain death. But again, I reluctantly went, and I didn't die. In fact, I had a great time. And that was the first of many international trips, and I started to love to travel. We traveled to at least 19 different countries. We even moved to the Caribbean and lived there for 6 years. So something that seemed impossible to me, travel, is now something I'm pretty comfortable with, and it was life-changing. Now, part of the reason I say this is because if doing marketing online and setting up a marketing funnel, which we're going to be talking about, if it feels overwhelming, just keep in mind that it's like anything in life. It seems scary until you do it. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it, and you might even start to like it. Another lesson is that if my business was tied to me personally, I would have been stuck at home and working probably more than full-time, which kind of defeats the purpose of owning a business, at least for me, because freedom is important to me. I don't like to be tied down. I'm passionate about traveling and experiencing new cultures. So when I started a business, I didn't want to be stuck in another job. If I hadn't created processes where a lot of things are automated and hired people to do some of the day-to-day tasks, there's no way I would have been able to spend a month in Europe or 2 months in Asia. But when you create processes, your business will not only grow faster, but you'll have more freedom. Now, maybe you don't want to spend 2 months traveling around Asia, but I'm sure there's something you want to do with your time. Maybe spending more time at home with your family, honing a skill or craft or hobby, whatever it is. If you apply what we're discussing today, it will give you greater freedom to spend your life how you want. And I will say too, this webinar is not a sales pitch for our service. In fact, we don't do any kind of marketing services for our clients. We only build websites, and a website's, it's part of your marketing, but it's not the marketing itself. So the information we cover today is going to be valuable whether you already have a website, and again, if that's with us or somewhere else, or if you don't yet have one. So let's talk about how you can set up a system to attract potential investors and convert them into actual investors in your deals. So to start, let's answer the question, what is a marketing funnel? The short answer is it's the process you take people through from the time they become aware of you to the point of investing with you repeatedly. On this image, we see a bunch of people coming in at the top. Those are people who express some interest, but only a few make it to the bottom and actually invest with you. It's like a funnel because when it's set up properly, it guides people through a process to get them where you want them, which in this case is to invest with you. But there are important steps in the middle that you have to take to get someone from the point of not knowing who you are to being willing to wire $50,000 or more to you. So let's say you go to an event and give a potential investor your business card. They go home and look up your website. Well, now what? Do you have a process to move them forward? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. So let's look at the stages of the marketing funnel. First, let's compare it to a romantic relationship, something we're all familiar with. You wouldn't normally propose to someone you just met. That probably wouldn't go very well. It's too soon to ask for that kind of commitment. So how does this process usually work? Well, the first step is attraction or awareness. You have to first know that the other person exists, and there has to be some sort of attraction. Typically at this stage, you try to get the person's contact information so you can move the relationship forward. Next, you have to learn about each other. You ask questions, you talk, you try to find out if this is somebody that you'd be interested in a long-term commitment with. After you've spent enough time together and learned enough about the other person, you realize you're ready to take things to the next level. You're ready to make a commitment. So let's say you get married, but obviously that's not the end. You want to nurture the relationship to make it loyal and long-lasting. So let's just compare that to the process that an investor goes through. So you first have to get out there somehow to make contact with potential investors. And we will talk about some ways to do that later. But a few examples that you're probably already familiar with are like meeting people at events, posting on social media, going on podcasts. Now, prior to this, these people didn't know who you were. They had no thought about investing with you. So at that first stage, they're basically just learning that you exist. And they're trying to decide whether what you have to offer is of interest to them. But to be able to move forward, you have to get their contact information so you can start developing a relationship. But it's unlikely that someone's going to be ready to invest right after they meet you. So you'll need to educate them about you and your company, about the asset class you're raising money for. For example, like apartment complexes, or someone mentioned oil, Airbnb. There's so many different things you can syndicate. Now, this stage could be slow or it could be quick, depending on what a person already knows about you and that type of asset. And next, when the time is right, you want to get the person to take action. Now, from your perspective, this is a conversion. You convert them from being a prospect or a lead to being an investor. And then the final stage is to continue the relationship. You take good care of them and their investment. You make them feel special, and then they're going to want to invest again and probably even bring their friends. Now, some syndicators don't really think this through, or they leave some of it to chance, and they end up wasting good investor leads. They might have some of these pieces in place, but they have some major holes where good investors are basically just pouring out. So today we will talk about this process in detail. So if you haven't started building your marketing funnel yet, by the time we're finished, you'll know where to start. And if you already have some of this in place, you can see what's missing and see what you need to focus on to tighten it up and convert more of those leads rather than having them fall out through holes. Now, since we're going through things in the order you're going to be setting them up, when you get to the first thing you don't have, that's where you should start. So we're going to go through in order. First thing that you don't already have in place, that's where you should start. So when we look at this funnel, we're really looking at it from the perspective of, your prospective investor. They have some kind of initial contact with you, then you give them information and so on. But that's not the order you should follow in setting this up, because it doesn't make sense to start marketing and finding investors if you don't have a system to put them into. Imagine that you're trying to fill a water bottle from a bucket. You could just try pouring it directly in. You might get a little bit in there, but the majority of it's going to be wasted. Probably even maybe even the force of the water might knock over the bottle, and the few drops you had in there might get spilled out. But if you take the time to get a funnel first, you can fill your bottle without a big mess. And it's really the same with your marketing. You can try to start getting investors in your deals, but if you don't have a system for following up and moving them forward to invest, you're probably going to be wasting so many good leads. And if you're trying to do this whole process manually, you may get overwhelmed, which is going to give your investors a bad experience, and they probably won't want to return. So since the attract stage is actually the last piece you should put in place, we're actually going to talk about it last. We're going to go through this basically in the order that you need to set it up. What is the first piece that you need to set up to build your funnel? Well, it's the education phase. So potential investors need to know you and your company. They need to understand how syndication works. They need to know something about the asset you're syndicating. People have to know, like, and trust you. And that's the stage where this happens. So how do you start the process of education? Well, it starts with getting their contact information. Now, remember, if you meet somebody that you're interested in dating, the relationship can't really start if you don't have a way to contact them or see them again. So by getting your prospects' contact information, you have a way to follow up and start building a relationship. Most of your marketing will go through your website. So if you don't yet have a website, that would really be probably the first step. But on your website, here's a few ways that you can capture someone's contact information. You can have a lead magnet, and we'll talk about what that is in just a minute. You can have a contact form. They can book a call, or you can have an investor profile form. So let's first discuss lead magnets. What is a lead magnet? Well, it's something free that people can sign up for on your website. So they put in their name and email to get it. So let's just say you're doing multifamily syndication and your audience isn't too familiar with that. So you might have something like this on your website that people can sign up for to download. So basically you want to give them something that's easily consumable, ideally something that's, under 5 minutes to read, something very specific, and promises one thing, speak to a desired result. It should have high perceived value and high actual value. So not newsletters or podcasts or books, but something that is going to open their mind to something new. So, sometimes people have a little box on their window on their website that says sign up for our newsletter. That's not really a lead magnet, because how many people really want to receive more emails? I've never thought, my inbox is too empty. I should sign up for a newsletter. It just doesn't have a high perceived value. Most likely it doesn't have actual value either. So I wouldn't trade my email address for that, and neither would most people. So from your perspective, yes, you do want to get people on your mailing list, but a newsletter is not something exciting that people typically want to sign up for. So a lead magnet serves multiple purposes. First, it gives you their contact information, which gives you a way to follow up. It also educates people who sign up. It gives them an understanding of why this type of asset is a good investment, maybe the tax benefits, why it's more stable than other types of investments like the stock market. By providing this education to them, you're also establishing yourself as an expert, because if you're able to teach them something they didn't know before, now they're looking to you as the expert. So if you don't yet have a lead magnet on your website, that would be a great place to start. Now, this particular one that I showed is something that we created for our clients to use, so they don't have to create one from scratch. So that's an option if that's something you're doing. Oh, I didn't realize it's text is over the top. Sorry about that. But besides a lead magnet, what are some other ways that you could get people's contact information? Well, it's generally a good idea to have several ways for people to contact you. For example, someone might have a specific question. They might want to go to your contact page on your website and fill out a form to send you a message. Some people will want to book a call because they have a question, or they just want to get a better feel for who you are and if they trust you. You can use a service like Calendly to make that easy. And what's nice is you can even connect your Calendly account to your Zoom account, so that when someone books a call, it automatically creates a Zoom meeting and sends it to that person who signed up, who booked the call. And of course, if people are serious about investing, you want to have an investor profile form on your website. This ask for their contact information, but also things like, are they SEC accredited? How much do they want to invest? Things like that. It gives them a way to indicate their interest in investing with you and a way to actually move forward. So your lead magnet, your contact page, the book a call link, and your investor profile form all are like basically different doors leading to the same place. Whichever one they choose, you now have their contact information and you can start building the relationship. But once you have their contact information, what do you do next? How do you move them forward? How do you build a relationship and keep moving them toward becoming an investor? Well, it's through your follow-up process. So here's a few ways that you can follow up. Now, of course, you could do this manually. You could pick up the phone and call people or send them a direct email. It's really not the most efficient thing at this stage. So we're going to focus more on things that are more automated, which allows you to reach more people at once. So things like automated follow-up emails, having a regular newsletter, and remarketing. I will just say, we said not to have a newsletter sign it, but people, you still want to have a newsletter. They just get on your list through maybe your lead magnet. So anyway, just want to clear that up. But those are a few ways that you might follow up. So let's look at those in more detail. So when someone signs up for whatever free offer you have on your website, the ideal thing is to have the person's contact information sent to some sort of an email marketing system or a CRM, which means customer relationship management. And a few examples of that would be like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp, and there's a lot of others out there that you can use. It's basically a database or a mailing list that you're putting people onto. So if you think, when somebody contacts you that you're just going to manually reply to the email, realistically, you're not going to get back to everyone in a timely manner. Some leads are going to fall through the cracks. But by using a system like this, you can make sure that it gets done consistently and every prospect has a good experience. I personally like ActiveCampaign because one thing that's nice about it is it allows you to add notes on people. So if I talk to somebody on the phone, I can actually make a note about what we said. And you'll also want to have in this system a series of emails, about 5 to 7. You might think of it like a welcome email series. We've all signed up for things online. Typically, you get an email right after you sign up, and then probably another email tomorrow, another one a few days later, maybe another one a week later. Through this, what you want to do is give people the information they want so they can decide whether they're interested in investing with you. Your emails might include information about you and your company, some educational information about the asset you're investing in, why that asset makes sense to invest in, maybe even a comparison with other types of investments, and a clear direction of what the next step is if someone is ready to invest or they want more information. So that might be to fill out the investor profile form that we mentioned, or it might be to book a call. So this automated series of emails is great because it speeds up the process of someone feeling like they know and trust you. Some people will actually feel like they know enough to take the next step from these emails, but realistically, most people are not going to be ready at this point. So then what? That's where your newsletter comes into play. So maybe someone's not ready to invest today, but in 2 months or 6 months, they might be. Now, if you only had that welcome email series and they got, say, 5 emails and then they never hear from you again, it's not too likely that they're going to remember you. But if you keep in touch periodically, you can make sure they do remember you. You can do that by sending out an email newsletter on a regular basis. And do whatever makes sense. It might be every 2 weeks, might be once a month, might be once a quarter. So that when someone gets to the point that they're ready to invest, you want to be the person that they think of contacting. We can call this top of mind awareness. You're the first person that comes to mind when they're ready. So they think, okay, I'm ready to invest some money somewhere. I just got an email last week about a new investment opportunity. Let me find that. If you keep in touch often, your message may still be in their inbox. They can reread it and see what the next step is. So what should you include in your newsletter? Well, it should be valuable information, things that people want to read, so they look forward to your emails and come to like and trust you more. So for example, what questions do people have that you could answer? What objections do they have that you could overcome? What information do your readers need to know that they don't know that would help them in some way or make them feel more comfortable about investing? For example, do they understand the tax advantages? Are there any changes coming with tax laws or anything else that would affect them as an investor? Maybe even something happening with other types of investments like the stock market. If there's a dip or some instability, that might be a good time to highlight the advantages of investing in the asset that you're syndicating. Now, you don't want to overwhelm people with information and sending emails every day or anything, but just enough that when they're ready to invest, they can easily find an email from you in their inbox and take that next step. Now, let me just ask, does anybody know what remarketing is? You can just type it in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. And if you don't, no worries, we're going to talk about it. And by the way, Kenneth, sorry I didn't get to acknowledge your message earlier, but I see that you're from San Fernando Valley in the Los Angeles area. Okay, nice. All right. Yeah. My wife Amy said it's internet stalking. Yeah, kind of. So basically, it's a way to bring people back to your website. Okay, here's another one. When you land on a website, it remembers and sends ads afterward. Yeah, that's basically it. So it's a way to get people back to your website who visited it before, or maybe they interacted with your social media posts. It's something you can do through services like Google Ads and Facebook ads that gives you a way to get in front of people who visited your website before. And we've all experienced it. You know, you're shopping around for a product, and then the next day you're on Facebook or Instagram or some other website, and you see an ad for that product you were looking at the day before. Or maybe you were checking prices for airline tickets, and then you start seeing ads everywhere about flights. That's remarketing. It might seem a little creepy sometimes, but it is effective. So here you're able to find people who visited your website before but didn't contact you, so you don't have their contact information. And if it weren't for remarketing, you wouldn't really have a way to get in front of them again. But with this, you can. So at this point, the ideal thing is to, through your ads, direct them to a page where you can get their contact information. That way you can actually start building a relationship. So it might be a page where you offer a lead magnet, something free they can sign up for. Another kind of side benefit of remarketing is that your prospective investor will feel like they see your company everywhere, which is kind of a good thing. They visited your website before, and now they're seeing your ad on Facebook or some other website. That can kind of help them to trust you more, because from their perspective, it seems like your ads are everywhere. It makes them feel like you're well established, so they can get familiar with you, more comfortable, and maybe come back. So just to recap a few main points from this section, here are some essential parts of your marketing funnel that you should have in place. So you want to have a way to capture contact information. You need a way to put contacts into some kind of email marketing system, a database basically, that you can store them. You want to send an automated series of emails to each contact. As soon as they sign up, they starts this series of emails, and then send a newsletter on a regular basis. So which of these do you have in place, and which ones do you need? If you're missing any of these, there's a hole in your funnel where potential investors can pour out and be wasted. Now, some people will stay at this information gathering stage for quite a while, but others might be ready to move forward sooner. So what's next? Well, it's the convert stage. So when the person is ready, you need to ask them for the investment. And you'll have to decide exactly how you want to do this. But one thing to keep in mind with this is the SEC rules about this and how you do this. So first off, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not qualified to give legal or financial advice. So what I'm going to tell you is just basically my understanding of it, but I do highly suggest you talk to a syndication attorney before taking any kind of actions. But whether you're using 506B or 506C in a syndication is going to have a big impact on how and when you present an offer to your potential investor, an actual opportunity to invest in a deal. So if you're doing 506C, it's a little simpler in some ways, because with that, you're only working with accredited investors and you're verifying their accredited status. So you can actually advertise deals wherever you want, basically. You can put them on the front end of your website. You can send out emails about them. You can post them on social media. But if you're going the 506B route, where you're working with both accredited and non-accredited investors, the rule says that you must have a pre-existing substantive relationship with them before presenting a deal. So that means you had to have a relationship with this person before you got into that deal. Because of this, it's not a great idea to just send your deals out to everyone on your general mailing list if you're doing 506B. In other words, everyone who signed up for your newsletter or everyone who filled out a contact form, maybe some of those you do have that kind of relationship with, but probably not all of them. Because if you can't prove that you have that kind of relationship with some of these people, you could potentially get into trouble. And I can't tell you exactly what that process needs to look like. That's really something an attorney can help you with. They can kind of help you know, like how many points of contact would be required, what kind of proof you might need if that ever were called into question. But what I would suggest is that once you determine a particular investor is okay to send deals to, put them on a separate list. These are people that you will send your deals to when they become available. And those are the ones that you would ask for a commitment. So at this stage, you need to present people with the opportunity to invest. You might do this by email. It might be like a newsletter type email that goes out to people that you've already vetted and they're okay to show this deal to. Or you might pick up the phone and call each investor. Now at this stage, compared to other stages, it's a better use of your time to have one-on-one conversations than say in the earlier stages, because these people have already gone through the education stage of your funnel. They already know who you are, what you do. They know something about the asset that you're syndicating. So we're talking about a smaller pool of people in most cases. You could also do a webinar. And this would be a way to present the deal to your potential investors and let them ask questions about it. You would email the people in your database, your investors, to let them know about this upcoming webinar and how to join. And then on the webinar, you'd present all the details. So whichever route you're using, you'll need to provide your potential investors with the specifics of the deal that they need to know, like what are the projected returns? How long will their money be tied up? They need to understand why this deal makes sense, why you're excited about it, and all the research that you've done into this deal. Basically, you want to show how you're going to make money on the deal and why it's a good investment. If you're using an investor portal, you can put the deal there as well, and that usually will have, allow people to, actually make the investment from there. And during this critical stage, this is where all the documentation needs to be submitted. So things like the PPM, the operating agreement, and other important documents that actually lock in their investment. And this might seem like the end of the process as far as getting investors goes. You've got the deal, you've got the investor, but what happens next is critical too. And having a process created for that is very important before you actually get people to this point. You need a plan for what you do. So we're talking about the final stage of our marketing funnel, which is loyalty, because how you treat the investor after you have their money is going to make all the difference in whether you're successful long-term or not. So this is where you need to really keep in touch with your investors and let them know how their investment is doing. When in doubt, over-communicate. If investors feel like they have to chase you down and ask for an update on the investment, it makes a really bad impression. So be very proactive with your communication and be transparent. You don't want your investors to find out from the news that the property they invested in caught on fire. Let them know when there are problems. And let them know, here's what the challenge is, here's what we're doing about it. No one expects a deal to go perfectly, but they do expect you to let them know what's going on. So if they can see that when problems arise, that you're proactive and you handle those promptly and communicate it clearly to your investors, they're going to still have confidence in you. Now, when you do have a specific deal and you have investors on that, you want to put those people on a separate mailing list. Or maybe if you're using like an investor portal type system, some of those have a way to send out an email just to the people who have invested in that deal. And you can decide how often you want to email them, but at least once a quarter, but probably monthly is even better. Don't leave it to chance. Create a plan in advance for how and when you're going to contact them and stick to that. And make sure it's easy for investors to get in touch with you and others on your team. Nothing makes investors more antsy than not being able to get in touch with you when they have a question or concern. They're going to start worrying that they've been scammed. If you're able to have one-on-one communication with your investors, it can really solidify the relationship. So whether it's you or someone on your team, having some regular contact with them, if that's something they appreciate, can go a long ways. Now, some people prefer to just be left alone, just updated periodically on how the investment's performing. So it's good to know those things. You can also do things to make your investors feel special. Help them feel like they made a wise decision by investing with you. Something that might mean, sometimes, it could be something like giving them an insider-only deal or maybe a preferred return. You can engage with them on social media, follow them, like their posts, respond to comments, interact with them. Also get to know them, know their kids' names or grandkids' names, their interests. And I'm not saying to stalk them, but ask questions, learn more about them, make notes so you can, remember them later. Because we all appreciate when someone shows a personal interest in us. You could even send a gift or some other special token of thanks and friendship. So what can you do to go beyond what people expect and give them more than they expect? Also, don't be afraid to show some personality. Don't be all business. Ultimately, people invest with people they like. So show your personality, share some personal information so they feel like they know you as a person. And of course, if you do have a new deal in the pipeline, let them know about that. Even if they can't personally invest in it, if they're happy with how you treated them, they're probably going to want to tell their friends about it. So if you take good care of your investors, you won't have trouble raising money for future deals. They're going to be eager to invest with you again, and they might even bring their friends. It's easier, more efficient, and costs less to keep the investors you have than to have to keep finding new ones. So take good care of your investors. Okay, so now once you've got your system built, all the things we've talked about so far, and the majority, the major parts of your funnel are ready, it's time to basically turn on the faucet. Start pouring new investors into your marketing funnel. So how can you attract new investors? Well, let me ask you first. You can write it in the chat if you want. What are some ways that you know of or that you can think of to meet or attract new investors? And while you're doing that, I'm going to get a quick drink of water. So how can you find new investors? Conferences? Good. Yeah, that's a really good one. It's a great way to meet people face to face. Okay, REIA, associations, hold networking events. Great. Yeah, those are all great examples. And so let's look at meetups. Very good. And when someone's starting out as a syndicator, obviously this is a big concern. How do I get more investors? But as you do more deals and you start scaling, it's a continual concern. Maybe the personal contacts you had who could invest have already invested in your deal, and now you have another deal, and you can't rely on that existing network. So here's a few ways, like you guys mentioned, meeting in person is great. So things like meetups, events, clubs, all those things like you guys said. Another way is pay-per-click ads. So things like Google ads and Facebook ads, those are a way to get in front of new people. Podcasts, either having your own or going on other people's. Social media, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all those kind of things. And SEO, search engine optimization. So these are all different ways to make contact with new potential investors and get them into your funnel. And we're going to look at each of these in a little more detail. So generally, for all of these methods, people are going to go through your website. So if your website is set up properly, it will move people to the next stage of the funnel, like we talked about earlier. But lots of websites are not really set up properly, and a lot of your efforts could be wasted in attracting new investors. So this is where you want to have your lead magnet, your contact form, book a call link, investor profile form, so that people that have have found you and they're now on your website, they have a way to actually get into your marketing funnel and move toward becoming an investor. So your website basically acts like a hub for all of your marketing. So let's look at some of these ways in more detail. So SEO, search engine optimization. I'm going to start with this because it's a common misconception that this is something everybody should do. It's really not. Most people overestimate the benefits of SEO and they underestimate the work and expense involved. For most syndicators, it's not something that makes sense to focus on, at least not until you're pretty well established. SEO is really a long-term strategy that takes a lot of time and effort and usually money to see any real results. And there are no guarantees. You could spend a lot of time and money and never really rank well on Google. Or maybe you do eventually rank, but then Google changes something and now nobody can find your website. It's also less effective than it used to be. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's look at this image. So I searched for the phrase alternatives to investing in stock market. And what we see here are the search results. Now, which of these sites you see here are listed because of SEO? None of them. Every one of those has the word ad at the beginning. So you would actually have to scroll down to see what's called the organic listings, which means people who got there by SEO. And when you do scroll down and see what's below the ads, it's major sites like the Motley Fool, Investopedia, Forbes that come up. So, if you think you're going to rank higher than those companies for that phrase, you've got a really big job ahead of you. It's going to cost a fortune. It's going to probably take years of work. And even then, there's no guarantees because it's really up to Google how they rank websites. And Google usually favors websites that have been around longer. So SEO, I'm not saying don't do it. It can be good if you target really specific phrases that have less competition, but it is a long-term strategy. If you need to raise money this month, it's really not the way you want to go. And if you do get results, it's going to take a while. So, and it's also something I don't suggest trying to do yourself. It's very technical, very time-consuming. I know we hire people to do that for us. And it's not really a high priority for us because we do get some leads that way, but it's probably one of the least effective methods for getting leads. So we're gonna spend more of our time or focus more on some better ways to find investors. Now, as we look at this, though, you see all those listings in the ad here that say ad before them. How would you like to be in that spot at the very top of the listings on Google? And what if I told you it's not going to take months or years to get there like it would with SEO, but you could actually be there this week? That's called pay-per-click advertising. And it's kind of what it sounds like. You have ads online, like the ones we just saw, and you pay each time someone clicks one of those ads. So actually having your website there, having your ad visible, doesn't cost anything. You only pay when someone clicks your ad. And there are a couple main places where you can advertise. There's a lot of different options, but a couple main ones are Google ads and Facebook ads. And as we just saw, Google ads show up at the top of the search results. And it makes sense that they put those at the top and push the other sites down that are using SEO, because Google makes money when people click those ads, but they don't make any money if somebody clicks the organic search results down lower. With Google ads, you choose the keywords or phrases that people are searching for, that people, that are a good match for what you do. And when they type in that phrase, your ad shows up. So put yourself in the shoes of your prospective investor. What would they be typing into Google? If you had money sitting in the bank that wasn't giving you very good returns, would you type in something like investment opportunities, or maybe passive investment income, high yield investments, or maybe something else? Or what if you had money sitting in the stock market, but you wanted better returns, or maybe you worry about the fluctuations in the market? What might you be searching for? Maybe something like alternatives to investing in the stock market. So if this is something you want to pursue, I would suggest probably hiring someone to help you create and manage those ads. It's pretty easy to spend a lot of money and not get great results. One great thing about pay-per-click ads, though, is that you put in your budget, and once you get enough clicks that you've used up your budget, it just turns off your ads until the next cycle. So let's just say, for example, you put in a daily budget of $10, and let's say you're paying $2 per click, maybe. Well, when you get 5 clicks and you reach that $10 limit, your ad just won't show anymore until tomorrow. It's nice because you can do more or less depending on your budget. There's another way to advertise through Google called display advertising. So in this case, the ads don't show up on the Google search page, but they show up on other websites. For example, here we're looking at a couple ads showing on the New York Times website. This is in the Your Money category. So by using display ads and being selective about where they appear, you could actually tap into people who may not be actively looking for investment opportunities, but that do have money to invest. Would you like your ad to be on the New York Times financial section like we see here? Well, you could, and probably more affordably than you might think. Because as with other pay-per-click ads, you set your budget to whatever amount you want, and you only pay when someone clicks your ad. Then there are Facebook ads. This is another type of pay-per-click ad. So as you're scrolling through your feed, you're going to see posts that say sponsored. Or if you're on a computer, you'll also see them on the side of the page. And because Facebook owns Instagram, you can also have your ads on Instagram through Facebook. Now, typically, leads from Facebook are probably not going to be quite as high quality as someone searching on Google, because people on Facebook a lot of times are just killing time browsing. Whereas if they're searching actively for something on Google, they're maybe looking for a solution to a problem they have. But still, everyone's on Facebook, and there are ways to target people that would be a good candidate for what you have to offer. And while you could set this up yourself, I really do recommend hiring someone to do it. I'm pretty tech savvy, and it gives me a headache. We just hired somebody to do it for us. With Facebook ads, Facebook knows a lot about people. They track a lot of stuff, and they're always learning all the time. So if you do run ads, one thing I've learned is that most likely they're not going to be very effective in the beginning. For the first month or two, you're basically spending money to train Facebook on who your audience is. So the longer ads run, the better Facebook understands who to show them to, and then the better results you'll get. And of course, an obvious way, as everybody mentioned, is meeting in person. That's a way to get in front of new investors. But a lot of syndicators go to events and meet people, but they don't end up with new investors for their deals. So I want to ask you, you can just type in the chat, what is your strategy for following up with the person after an event? So you meet them, you get their business card. What do you do next? You can type it in the chat. Oh, Nick says a phone call. Okay, great. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Okay. And send an introductory email with an invitation to schedule a call. Okay, nice. Yeah, that's good. That gives them a way to move forward and actually get to know you better. Okay, great. If you have any more, feel free to still type them in, but I'm going to discuss this a little bit more. So it's, I think it's easy when we go to an event, you collect a lot of business cards, you talk to people, and you intend to follow up, but it's easy to not do it when you get home. Maybe you try and you don't remember who this person was, what you talked about. So here's a few tips that might be helpful. When you get somebody's business card, take a moment right when you get their card and make a note about them, maybe somewhere on the card. Or if you can't do it immediately, just the first chance you get. And when you do contact people, if there wasn't something specific that you said you were going to send them or whatever, think of how you can provide some value to them. You might also ask them if it's okay to put them on your contact list so you can keep in touch. If they do say that's okay, you could put them in your email marketing system on your mailing list, so they will actually get your newsletters, and they'll keep hearing from you that way. And if you've gone to live events in the last year or so, and I think probably a lot that we have today probably went to the Secrets of Successful Syndication recently, or maybe there's other events you've gone to, you've probably seen people using QR codes. Maybe instead of a business card, they just have a QR code on their phone to scan. Now, I've seen those work a couple different ways, but most often you scan the code and it adds that person as a contact in your phone. And it seems cool, but is it effective? Do you ever look through your contacts on your phone and say, oh, here's some name I don't recognize, I think I'll call them? I know I don't. I know I've got quite a few people in my phone that I met by scanning their QR code, but frankly, I'm never going to contact them, because how would that work? I open my contacts really only when I'm searching for somebody specific that I want to send a message to or a call. So just getting your contact information in someone's phone isn't necessarily doing anything for you. I'm not saying it can't work, but have a solid strategy for it if you're going to do that. And don't do it just because everybody else is doing it, because those people might not be getting results from it. But what about if other people are using QR codes? How can you make sure you follow up with those people? Well, as soon as you get them added as a contact in your phone, you can add a note that you can search for later and remember who they were. So for example, like in the company field, you put their name and then in the company, you could put an abbreviation for the event you were attending. So again, like Secrets of Successful Syndication, I might put in SOSS 2022 and use that for the company on every one of those people that I get their contact information for. Then I can search for that and find all those people I met at the event. And hopefully I also added a note about who they were and what we discussed, so it can actually have a meaningful follow-up. Okay, podcasts are another way to get in front of people and attract them to you. Now, having your own podcast is something to consider at some point, but it's not necessarily a great way to get started because it's not going to put you in front of a new audience initially. Until it is ranking high in podcast directories, new people are probably not going to find it. So at that point, it's really more of a credibility tool. It is a great thing to do if you have a plan for it and you can create content consistently, because it's a way for potential investors to feel like they know you and feel comfortable with you. Syndicators I know who have their own podcasts say that when people contact them about investing after listening to their podcast, it's basically a done deal. They already know that they want to invest in that person, with that person, because they feel like they know them and trust them. But again, initially, your own podcast is more of a credibility tool, and for building relationships, and not so much for attracting new people. To get benefits from your own podcast, you need a following. But being interviewed on other people's podcasts is a great way to get in front of a new audience, because the podcast you're going on will already have a following. So if your goal is getting more exposure, make sure that is the case. Make sure people actually do follow the podcast you're going on and listen. They actually listen to that podcast. When you're interviewed, if you can show that you know what you're doing and show some personality so people like and trust you, some are going to want to learn more about what you do. So try to provide real value on the interview. And usually at the end of the podcast, the host will ask how listeners can connect with you. And that's a great place to mention your website. You might even have something free that they can get on your website you can tell them about and tell them how to get that. For example, here's our podcast. We use it as a way to provide valuable training to our audience. And the cool thing about it is you can actually use the same content multiple ways. So we record our podcast as a video, and then we extract the audio from it, which gets posted to all the podcast directories, like Spotify and iTunes, things like that. But we also put the video in different places, like on our website. We put it on YouTube and on Facebook. And when you're posting to YouTube, there's actually the possibility somebody might be searching for something on YouTube and actually find your video that way and give you additional exposure. So that leads us to the next way of attracting people, which is social media. So we're talking about things like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So should you be on all the platforms or just specific ones? Well, it kind of depends, mainly on who are you trying to raise money from and what platform do those people prefer. Grant Cardone has raised millions of dollars on Instagram. So has Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets. Some people have been successful with LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, but you can be successful with pretty much any platform as long as the people that you want to raise money from are using it. And you don't necessarily need to be on all of the platforms. You could pick just one and really focus on it and get results. The other key is to be consistent. If you post 5 things this week and then nothing for 3 months, you're probably not going to get great results. Now, when it comes to what you post on social media, you want the majority of it to be valuable information, things that people will learn from or that they'll want to share with other people. And just a small percentage should be promotional. So let's just say, for example, you post something 5 days a week. Well, you'd want at least 4 of those days to be something educational and entertaining. And then maybe one day could be something promotional about your company. Because if you're only posting promotional things every time, like people get annoyed by that. You want to post something that maybe makes somebody think, or something funny, or like a quote that they want to share with their friends. And so they come to like what you're posting, and then they'll be more receptive when you do share something promotional. When should you post things on social media? Does it matter what day of the week or what time of day you post? Yes, it does. And a lot of that is going to depend on your audience. If you are trying to raise money from a very specific group, let's say doctors, for example, well, the time of day they're checking social media might be different from someone who's retired. It's also going to depend on the platform. For example, people might use LinkedIn while they're working, but Facebook on their lunch break. But as a general guideline, I'll show you some information from a service called Hootsuite, and they analyzed over 30,000 social media posts to look at patterns. And they found that the best times overall to post on social media is 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So this is kind of a general rule of thumb across the board. But there's also, here's a breakdown too for each platform. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So each one of those actually has a preferred time, a time that gets the best results, the most activity. But again, like I said, this is going to vary. These are good times to start with, I think, but you'll have to see how your followers respond. If you are using a service like Hootsuite that I mentioned, which basically lets you schedule your social media posts to multiple platforms, they sometimes give you a suggested time, which can help. So just kind of a recap of this section. Once you've got a way to capture people's information and you have a system in place to follow up with them consistently, you're ready to turn on the tap and start attracting investors. And here's some of the ways that we talked about. And typically with all of these methods, you are going to be directing them to your website. And then if your website's set up properly, it will have ways to capture people's contact information. Things like contact form. You could use remarketing to get them back again. You can have an investor profile form they can fill out, a book a call link, or a lead magnet. So all of these will give you their contact information, which gives you a way to follow up with them. Then you can put them into an automated system where they get those automatic emails that help build the relationship. Then you can also send out a newsletter regularly to keep in contact. So all of these points of contact are going to nudge people along in the process of becoming an investor. And as you can see, the website really is kind of a hub for all of your marketing. So here are 4 mistakes that syndicators make that limit their success, and kind of based on what we talked about here. So one is they may not have a lead magnet, or it's only a newsletter sign up. Because a lot of people that come to your website, they're curious. They're not really ready to fill out a form and say, here's how much money I have. They want some more information. So not having something for them to get more information is kind of a missed opportunity. Or also limiting yourself to only one-on-one relationship building. Now, one-on-one is great, but it does limit your success because you can only talk to so many people. So the better, you can better leverage your time by using other methods too, like social media and pay-per-click ads to get in front of more people at once. Also letting hot leads go cold. The way to avoid this is by having an automated follow-up series in place that starts building the relationship when people sign up. Also having a newsletter that keeps in contact with people regularly and nudges them forward. And fourth, chasing rather than attracting investors. You don't want to have to chase people and beg them to invest with you. And you can avoid this by having good educational content in place, like a lead magnet that educates them, follow-up emails, blog posts, going on podcasts where people can see you as an expert. All of these things can really help to attract people to you. So you might be wondering, where do I even start? And some of that, of course, depends on where you're at right now. But don't feel like you have to have all this perfectly in place from the start. It takes time to put all these pieces together. You should, always be looking to improve it. But get something in place that you can start using and then regularly revisit it, see what you can improve. And also, everything we talked about today does connect to your website in some way or another. So if you don't already have a professional website, that would be a great place to start. And that's actually something we can help you with, as I mentioned. And you do want to make sure that your website has at least a couple different ways to capture leads. And whenever you can, connect your website to an email marketing system. So people sign up and they get those automatic emails. Now, if you don't already have a website, or it's maybe something you built yourself and it's not what it should be, we would be glad to help you with getting your professional website up and running quickly. We offer strategic websites for syndicators. And here's an example of one of the sites that we offer. The design, the content, everything is already created. So when you sign up, you can have a site just like this, or we have other designs. All the text is already written professionally, so you don't have to waste any time with the technical setup because we've got all that covered for you. And some of the things that we talked about today are actually built in. So like the lead magnet that you see here, we have a couple plans where that's actually included. So, potential investors can sign up with their name and email, and that allows you to capture their contact information and then follow up with them. Our top plan even includes a template you can use for follow-up emails, which saves a lot of time rather than having to write that from scratch. So now we'll open it up for a question and answer. So is there anything we talked about today that you have a question about, or maybe even about our website service or anything else? I'd be glad to answer those. You can either type it in the chat or raise your hand and unmute, and glad to hear from you. And we'll just say thank you all for your attention today too. I really appreciate that. Appreciate the input too through the chat. That's great. Okay. Let's see, Nick asked, how are changes and maintenance taken care of with your plan? So a lot of the technical maintenance stuff we do before you behind the scenes. Like we keep it's all built with WordPress. We keep all that stuff updated. We have licenses for all the plugins and things you need. We do all that kind of stuff. If it's like changes to your website, like content and stuff like that, just on an ongoing basis. So let's say, for example, you're posting blog posts. We'll actually include, if you write the blog post, or maybe you're on podcast, we'll include posting 2 items per month. With our pro and executive plans, we'll do that for you, so you don't have to even worry about it. If there's something outside of that, basically just contact us. If it's something simple, we'll probably just do it for you. But if it's something else, that you want to do on a regular basis, we can show you how to do it, because you do have access to log in and make changes yourself if you want to. Okay, Vincent asks, do you have a phone number? Yes. Let me just pull that up here and I'll put it in the chat. We also have an option to book a call for anybody that wants to do that too. But if you want to set up a specific time, I'll just go ahead and I'll put this in the chat here, the phone number. Oh, let's see, I didn't. Oh, okay. Amy already did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. 540-508-8987 is the number. Also on our website at Apartment Investor Pro, at the bottom, there's a book a call link. So if you want to do that too, you can do that. Let's see. Okay. Rick asked, do syndicators use corporate website along with your separate website to attract the investors? And Rick, I might need you to clarify that a little bit. I know a lot of people just have the one main site for their company. It kind of represents their company, but it is like a money-raising site. Essentially, it's kind of mostly written toward investors, but it really is kind of a credibility thing with brokers too. I mean, if they see that you have a professional site and they see what you're doing, a lot of times that's all they need to see, to basically see that you are actually a company, and kind of know what you're doing. But if that doesn't answer your question, though, let me know. Okay, Todd asks, how much of the funnel does your company provide services for? Okay, great question. So basically, we do the website, and some of our plans have a lead magnet built in. So there's like a sign up form for that. So that's actually included. The content for that is already written and everything. One of our plans also has a template that you can use for follow-up emails. So you're going to need to personalize a little bit with information about your company, but it gives you basically the template to follow, and you can put that into like ActiveCampaign or whatever service you want to use, and do that follow-up process. We don't get involved with like the actual marketing side of it. There are people out there that do that, like LinkedIn or other like social media, things like that, or pay-per-click ads. We don't do that part of it, but we basically give you a place to kind of a hub to kind of connect all that. Let's see. Amy asked, if we have a list from a previous professional life that mainly lives in Facebook, and your intended audience may live on another platform like LinkedIn, how does one get started? Okay, so if I understand correctly, you have a list of people that are that use Facebook mainly, but you're wanting to advertise on or contact them through LinkedIn. The same people that were on Facebook, is that right?
It would be a different demographic. So it would not be the same. It could be some of the same people, but not all of them.
Okay. So you're
like I'm trying to, I don't know, without getting too deep. My previous list are yoga students, but now I want to appeal to passive investors who have the money to do it. Yoga students are not going to have, some may, but a lot of them won't.
Okay, so you're basically talking about starting out from scratch, kind of like building a new list, essentially, or new contacts on a different platform than you were previously on.
Essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, basically, you want to. I would say, like, kind of have a plan for what you're going to post, and like what are the people that you want to attract, what are they looking for? What would they be interested in? And start preparing some of those. I think it's a nice, good idea to kind of plan it out in advance and kind of figure out what kind of stuff you're going to post and have it kind of mapped out, maybe a schedule for like when you're going to post. And initially, you might also try looking for other people that are on that platform. Let's say LinkedIn, like search for people, find people that you think might be a good fit based on maybe other, interests they have or companies they work for or things like that, and add them as a contact. So you can start having a list of contacts essentially that will see something when you do post it. Because if you post stuff and you don't have any followers, that doesn't do much good. But there are some options too. Like I don't know exactly, this isn't something I've really explored, but I know if you have a contact list, you can actually, there's a way to, I think, upload it into LinkedIn, and it will let you basically add those people as contacts. So I have heard of people buying a list of accredited investors and actually uploading it into LinkedIn, and then then they can contact those people. So there are ways of doing that. I don't know the specifics of exactly how to do that, but I know it is possible. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Martin asks, do you coordinate and or set up the CRM component? So basically our website service will connect with pretty much whatever CRM you want to use, like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or whatever. We can actually, with like our pro and executive plans, we'll connect it for you if you need help with that. So that like the contact forms on your website will connect and communicate with those. So we can help you get that set up. We don't go in and set up all your emails and things like that, but we do have, like I said, we have a template for some emails you can use, and a tutorial about how to put them in there. And we can, we'll help you with it if we'll offer, advice on that too if you need any help with that. Hopefully that makes sense. If that doesn't answer your question, let me know though. Okay, yeah, Amy mentioned too in the chat, Amy, my wife, said you can use a service like Hootsuite, and that's something we actually use. We plan out what we're going to post, and you basically make a schedule, and it'll automatically get posted at that time, which is really handy. And you can post this, pretty much the same content, but a little different to multiple platforms. So like we send it to like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, I believe, is the main ones that we use. But and you can actually later reuse some of that content too. So like every so often you might, if you have something that was popular, people liked it, you might later, months later, like use it again. So, okay. Right. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, thank you. So definitely appreciate all I'll give just a few more seconds in case anybody else thought of a question, but if not, definitely appreciate. Oh, Ben's with us, Ben Bannock. Okay, nice to have you with us. We've met at several events. We've run into each other, so that's cool. Nice to have you with us today. Well, thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. We will we have recorded the webinar, so we'll get it posted on the next couple of days. So if there's anything you missed, you'll be able to go back and watch that. So thank you all so much for attending. We definitely appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Again, through our website, Apartment Investor Pro, you can send a message or call or book a call or whatever. So thanks again. So, and I hope you all have a great night. This is a quick question. Martin says, is there a link for a follow-up call? I think, okay. I don't know if you mean the, like to book a call. If so, I'll put that in the chat. So here's the book a call link if you want to book a call with someone. Okay, there you go. There it is. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your attention today and appreciate your input. I really enjoyed it, and hope you all have a great rest of your evening. So thanks a lot. Have a good night.